An investigation by the U.S. Coast Guard has concluded the Titan submersible disaster could have been prevented. It imploded during a dive to the wreck of the Titanic in 2023, killing everyone on board. The report blames the operator, OceanGate, for the tragedy, saying it failed to follow standard safety protocols. Let's take a closer look at the findings and bring in Mark Harris. He's an investigative science and technology reporter. Mark, welcome to the day. Now, does it look to you like it was money over safety in the OceanGate disaster?
I think it was mostly personality over safety. I just think that the CEO and founder, Stockton Rush, who obviously died in the Titan implosion, I felt he was such a driving force behind that expedition, behind the company, that he blinded himself to some of the safety concerns that we're hearing about now.
Let's look at those safety concerns. What were the main oversights? What have we learned from this report that was just released?
Right, we've got some really great technical details about what the problems were with the carbon fiber hull. Basically, that it was not really analyzed properly, that the company didn't really understand what they were building. They didn't understand how long it would survive and what its lifetime might be in terms of number of dives and how it might deteriorate as time went on. And then we also learned some of the possible operational problems that also went into and possibly contributed to its demise, such as being left out to freeze the winter before its final series of dives. So there was a lot of technical detail about the submersible, but there was also a lot of detail about the way the company was run. And the Coast Guard, the US Coast Guard, called it a toxic workplace where people were working under the threat of being fired if they were to raise safety concerns.
Investigators found the submersible's design, certification, maintenance, and inspection process were all inadequate. It's almost surprising disaster didn't strike earlier, isn't it?
Right. I mean, the company wasn't completely useless, right? They had some great people working really hard to keep everyone safe. But what they didn't have was a real understanding of the way that submersible was deteriorating over time. And the way the company was run was really making it hard for anyone to understand how it was changing and how it was getting worse. And so the problems were mounting up in the background, but nobody realized it. Nobody really had the idea how bad things were getting with the submersible.
But really, there were loopholes that, as someone foreign to the topic of submersibles, just feel shocking. The process of certification, for example, that's the assessment of the submersible by an independent maritime organization. That process is voluntary, and Rush, the CEO, whom we mentioned before, simply opted out. How is that legal?
Right. So Russia's position, the company's position, was always that they weren't going to operate that Titan within the US territorial waters, right? They were going in the Titanic, which is in the middle of the North Atlantic. It's an international ocean. And they also chose, or they said they were going to register or flag the submersible in the Bahamas. Now, they never did that. The submersible was never flagged in any country. And the Coast Guard's idea is that, they were telling the US regulators they were flagging it somewhere else. And to other people, it seemed like a US company. And so it kind of fell through the gaps. You're absolutely right when they say they exploited some loopholes that meant that nobody was keeping a good close eye on the submersible or its operations.
The report also found, and I want to quote it here because it's truly striking, by strategically creating and exploiting regulatory confusion and oversight challenges, OceanGate was ultimately able to operate Titan completely outside of the established deep sea protocols. That's very troubling. How do we know that other similar companies are not going to be doing the same?
Right, it's a great point, and we don't know that. We have norms and accepted behaviors, but if somebody is building something quietly in one country and is using it in another, or even in international waters where there's obviously no overarching authority, they can do that. Now, most reputable companies, of course, need to get insurance for their vessel, and insurance is really hard to come by without having some of these certifications and registrations. And so that's one kind of global obstacle to other operators, trying to do the same kind of things. If their customers are asking, just a second, do you have insurance for your vessel? And if the answer is no, then that's a real red flag, because it shows that they haven't gone down the process of showing somebody at least that their vessel is safe to operate.
What lessons can we draw from this disaster? What does what we know today, mean for the industry developing around deep sea expeditions?
Right, there are so many lessons, because there are so many things and so many issues that they highlighted. Obviously, the first thing is that new technologies require a really good level of oversight and analysis to make sure that these technologies are going to work safely and reliably over a long period of time. And the best way to do that is to get some outside experts to look at it. Now, whether it's full certification or some kind of registration or some kind of oversight, then at least people might have a better idea about the safety of vessels they're going into. Secondly, obviously, make sure that the company itself is operated in a safe way, and that's really hard to do because it's a private company, and we really can see that there was a lot of failings here in terms of internal oversight and the way the company was operated, where they would fire people. The board did not have a very good impact or influence on the way the company was run. So there's so many lessons. In terms of practicalities, it really comes down to customers understanding what they're signing up for. And I think it's fair to say that most customers, most of the people who went on the Titan, didn't really understand what they were getting into and how risky a vessel that was.
I have to let you go, but not before asking you, would you take a ride in a submersible?
I did take a ride with Stockton Rush in the prototype of the Titan. It was a steel-hulled submersible, and I had to sign a waiver. And even now, I kind of look back and perhaps wish I didn't, but I will certainly be much more careful in the future.
I'm really happy you lived to tell the tale. That was journalist Mark Harris. Thank you so much.
Thank you.